Hello, everyone. Today we need to hurry through this list because I have class in an hour and it's a 30-minute drive. So we're going to shoot through this list real quick. This is the Studio Series 86 line. Now, you'll forgive me if I'm not as detailed with these descriptions or these reasonings as I am with the live action Studio Series. I do not have the connection to G1 that a lot of Transformers fans do have. I have respect for it, but I don't have any strong connections one way or the other towards it. I am known in thinking that this came way too soon. They needed to finish the live action versions first, but we'll get into that in another video. So, real quick explanation of the tiers. Worth the scalper's price, pay whatever. Higher price, pay a little bit of a higher price, not too crazy though. Get it if you can afford it. If you can afford it, get it. If you can't, you're not missing out on much. Pass, you don't really need to get this one. You can pass on it. Get it if you really, really want it though. Plastic Attack Victim, worst the worst. These figures suck. Don't get them. So, up first, RC. Get it if you can afford it. This is the same RC figure we've been getting for like the past 10 years. This is yet another remold slash retool of the Thrilling 30 RC that we got back in 2013, 14, something like that. 2014, because 1984 was the year the show premiered. So, if you have the Thrilling 30 or the Kingdom slash whatever Earthrise, whichever it is, I did not keep up with those. You pretty much had this figure. Massive backpack. It's an RC figure. Gonna have a backpack. There's no real getting around that, especially on the G1 where it turns into a car. On a motorcycle, you can fib it like on a Bumblebee movie RC. You can kind of get away with it, but with a car, there's no getting around it. So, moving on. Blur. Definitely, in my opinion, not as good as RC. The arm kibble doesn't tab in. His face is friggin' ugly. His transformation's a bit wonky. Things don't always like to tab in where they need to go. I don't think he's bad per se. I just think RC overall is a little bit better. Also, I just don't like when they do the clear plastic on G1 toys. It doesn't read as G1 whenever there's a clear plastic with heavy detail on the inside of it. I understand they did that with like the Dinobots, but really, when you think of G1, you think solid colors. You think blocks of color, not heavy detailing. So we'll get to that when we get to another specific figure in this list. Cliff Jumper. If I remember correctly, this is just a re-release of the Earthrise or Kingdom Cliff Jumper. I don't know which line he came out in. I didn't really keep up with that lines or those series. So, from what I could tell, he goes here. I think I have the Buzzworthy Bumblebee version on here. I'm not sure. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong there, but yeah, he's kind of in the middle. I don't like the parts forming. They could have worked something in there to keep him from doing that, but I'm not big. I'm not a huge denier of parts forming. I think it has its place, so not too much to say about him. He is really small, but he was a small guy in the show, so we'll move on to Gnaw. Now, I actually owned this guy. In my opinion, get him if you can afford it. I wouldn't pay too much of a higher price for it. He is also really small, but also that kind of fits with the Sharkticon aesthetic they had, where he was really short and chunky. He comes with both his gun and his club, but we don't ever see him use a gun. That's more for accuracy towards the toy from the movie instead of the actual movie itself, where he only had the tail club. Good paint job overall. For some reason, though, on his head sculpt, they sunk his eyes in really, really far, like halfway through his head. And it's really hard to see the painted eyes, and he looks dead 90% of the time, so. But other than that, minor complaint. One other complaint I had, the fin. The fin doesn't tab in, or at least on my copy, the tab for the fin was not tight at all. Like, I would tip the figure over and it would fall off. So that might be, your mileage may vary, or it might be a widespread thing, but that was also another thing I had a problem with. Grimlock. Yeah, I feel like I have to put him here just because it's It's Grimlock. Two, it's probably the best G1 representation of the character we've gotten in a while. Definitely better than the Power of the Primes. I think it was Power of the Primes. I didn't pay attention to the Prime Wars trilogy. Those shows were bad. Combined Wars and all that were pretty bad. Sorry, I need to keep on track here. Good paint job. For some reason, I don't know why they included Wheelie. I guess it was just for the movie, but I don't understand the minifigures they include. There's no reason for them. You could always just release a figure, which for Wheelie and Daniel Woodwicki they did. But other than that, very minor nitpick, if you can even call it that. Yeah, great figure overall. Hot Rod. This is pretty controversial because this is a deluxe class figure that was sold at the Voyager price point because of the number of accessories it came with. And it came with a pretty good amount of accessories. 2 guns, 2 blast effect parts, a matrix of leadership, and the effect part for the matrix, and then the pizza. I call it the pizza cutter, but and it also came with a sunglasses gimmick in the head. You'd lift the helmet up and you'd flip out a pair of blue sunglasses, which is pretty cool. I personally don't like this figure all too much. He does clean up better than RC, so I'll put him there. I don't think I'll put him next to Null. Or above Null. The reason why is because his shoulder articulation is god awful. There is no pose you can get him into where he doesn't look awkward. The ratchets on his shoulders are so far apart that his arm is either sticking straight out to the side, straight down, or like right in the middle. They definitely did not need to make that a ratchet joint. And another thing is that he, for some reason, just like putting, like he has more G1 articulation than any of these guys do. Like, in order to get him to hold his guns up, like straight out, you have to move his whole arm. Like, his whole arm sticks straight out whenever you do it. And that goes back to the shoulder articulation, but also just the articulation overall. And this guy is not as great. He does have an ankle pivot, which is nice, but, you know, there's just a few problems that prevent me from putting him any higher than this. Plus, I just the red's not accurate. He should be like a magenta almost, so that puts him down a little bit. Ironhide. This is another controversial one. So he is also, well, okay, he's deluxe as far as height goes. However, the engineering that was required in order to get him to look as clean to the G1 model as accurate required a Voyager price point. So he's very broad. He very wide. So he's Voyager in that way, but height-wise, he's only a little bit taller than your average deluxe-sized figure. So that was another controversial one. However, I think this one's a little less controversial than Hot Rod, just because the engineering, in order to get him to look as clean and as close to the animation as animation accurate as possible, which, believe me, G1 did not do them any favors. So yeah, I do not like the amount of clear plastic on this guy, though. There is way too much clear plastic. I hear it's pretty durable. Well, it's a new figure, so we can't see how durable it is. I haven't heard of anyone having any major like breakage problems or anything like that. That toy guy did have a minor break on the grill of the vehicle mode, but that's a very small break to have. So yeah, other than that, he's probably going to go up here. I might rethink this a little bit towards the end, but as of right now, get it if you can afford it. Should be coming on shelves here pretty soon. This is Junk Heap. I think that's Junk Heap. Yeah, because Retgar's right there. Junk Heap. I'd pay a higher price for him. I think he's a little bit better than Retgar just because he doesn't have the weird nipple guns that never stay in place. I don't know why they put those on ball joints on Retgar. Once again, so on this guy and, well, on both of them, this is a remold of this guy. The bike mode's a bit, you kind of have to assume, you have to let your imagination take over a little bit. It gives the basic look of a bike, but, it's not really, anything. Sorry. It's not any recognizable bike, but you can tell what it's trying to be. There we go. I would get it eventually. I don't like the spikes on either of these guys being that softer plastic. It's not soft plastic, but it's like malleable hard plastic. It's weird. It's not your traditional soft plastic like what you would see on uh, Sweeps or Scourge here with his projectile. His projectile or his blast effect is that really soft plastic that you see. The spikes on these guys aren't that soft, but they are soft enough that almost every time you pull them out of a box, they're going to be bent. Um, and also, I don't necessarily like the parts forming. I understand why they had to put it in there. I just don't necessarily like it. But once again, like I said with this guy, that parts forming does have its place, and I understand why they had to do it. So, still a great figure overall. Definitely worth getting for a little bit higher price. Perceptor is probably my favorite figure that I own from this line. I'm not going to put him above Grimlock just because that's Grimlock. That's one of the best toys of him we've gotten in a while. This is probably the best deluxe that we've gotten in the entire line. One, because it's actually a deluxe class figure. Two, they didn't sell it for a Voyager and then just pack in a bunch of accessories. I hate when Hasbro does that. That's why this figure might get bumped down a little bit, actually. But yeah, great. I love the minimal amount of paint on this guy. I love the fact that they used actual plastic for parts instead of paint. That means that this guy's there's not going to be a lot of paint chipping on this guy over a long period of time. I do wish though his thighs, due to transformation, they bend at the thigh in order to get him into his microscope mode. However, there's nothing locking them into place for robot mode, so they do have a tendency of bending at the wrong point. So, all right, how much time we got? We got to speed things up a little bit. Core Class Ratchet. This was literally based on one frame of animation that you see at the very beginning, where Ironhide's standing there and Ratchet's like half his height. It's hilarious, but like there was no reason for them to make a toy out of it. That's a bit ridiculous. So it's a good Core Class figure, but I would pass on it just because they've already confirmed that they are going to make a Ratchet out of this guy. So, and they're going to make an Ironhide out of this one, which it's so dumb. But anyway, Frenzy / Rumble, whichever you want to call him. I don't really care about the blue versus red argument. Yeah, I'll put him right here. Get him if you can afford him. This pretty much confirms that we're going to get a Studio Series 86 Soundwave at some point. At least I hope we do. But yeah, I don't know what these guys are like in the show or the movie, so this is pretty much where I'm going to put them. I'm not a biggest fan of Core Class figures in general, unless they do something new and really cool. So, yeah, this guy here, he'll go above RC just because he'll go above Hot Rod too. Yeah, we'll put him right there. I think that's a fair spot. Scourge / Sweeps. Yeah, about right there. Not much I could say. Good vehicle mode. Good vehicle mode. There's really no difference between the Sweeps and the Scourge. Sweeps, I think, uses a light shade of blue, whereas this uses a light shade of purple. But they're so close to each other that there's almost no way you could tell the difference. So, if you can get Sweeps, get him. If you can find Scourge, he's really rare now. Get him if you can afford it, but more than likely these are still clogging up your Walmart shelves. I know they are here at my local Walmart, so get it if you can afford it. If you can't, don't worry about it. Sludge. He's probably going to go to the top right here. Unless they end up fixing... He's not going to go in the higher price unless they end up fixing the looseness in his waist or in his legs. And fix the tabs for his kibble wings. That it's so ridiculous how loose these things are. They definitely, I think DNA Design created an upgrade kit where it does fix that, but the fact that it's just ridiculous how loose these came straight out of the box. So definitely the weakest of the 3 Dinobots we've gotten so far, but I do still think he's a good overall figure. Definitely. I think he's my favorite robot design of the 3. Grimlock's definitely the better overall toy, which is why he's up here and he's not. But definitely get it if you can afford it. If you can't, just wait until they release a little bit better versions, or unless you can get this and then get the DNA Design upgrade kit. So moving on to Slug. I don't like Slug as much as Grimlock. The reason I don't like Slug as much, geez, these names are too similar. I don't want to say the other word because I might offend some people in Britain. I don't like the amount of red. I know it's accurate, but I think it's just really ugly, the amount of red that's on him. At least with these guys, there's stuff to break it up. Here you get a little bit of gray, and that's about it. I understand it's screen accurate, but once again, this is probably the least favorite design-wise. Not now, as a figure overall, definitely close to Grimlock, but the design overall and the colors overall definitely are not as good as Grimlock's in my opinion, and definitely not as good as Perceptor's. This is my least. I don't like this figure at all. Okay, Coronation Starscream. One of the most popular scenes in the movie is the coronation of Starscream and then his inevitable death. So instead of giving us a good figure, they gave us the Earthrise figure and then just gave us a bunch of accessories and sold it at the leader class price, which was ridiculous. The amount of molded detail on this guy just is so much, it does not fit with the rest of these guys. In reality, the only thing you're paying for here that I think would actually be considered worth it is the throne and the rest of the accessories. The figure itself, there's no reason you need to buy this. The crotch guard isn't 3 pieces or 2 pieces, which it needed to be. It's one solid piece, so if you try to sit him in the throne, you can't really. Also, he does not sit in the throne properly, so definitely pass on this guy unless you just absolutely want him. I don't think he's worth it. He doesn't fit into this line whatsoever. He's way too detailed for it. I just do not like. This was probably one of the laziest re-releases they could have done. They didn't even attempt to try and make him look like he's a part of this line. They literally just re-released him, and I think they added a hinge to his hand, and that's it. There was no reason for this guy to be a re-release instead of just a new figure. Sorry, rant over. Wheelie, you bottom. Get it if you can afford it. He should still be on the shelves right now. I personally won't be getting him just because I don't hold a connection to majority of these. I'll be getting the Dinobots as they come out, which if I can find a Grimlock for anything less than $100, that'd be great. But yeah, Wheelie's. I think they should have just released this instead of giving him a minifigure, but it's all right. Definitely wish they could have folded the hands up somehow, but at that size, there's not much you can do. So moving on to our final entrance, Wreck-Gar. Wreck-Gar's about equal to Junkheap. I don't think he's as good just because Wreck-Gar, the cannon nipples, that's what I call them at least. I don't like how they're on ball joints instead of just being in a fixed position or on a hinge that just goes up and down, because then you can never get them in line. He's definitely more prone to the spikes warping in their package than Junkheap is. Junkheap, I was lucky enough to only have a very, very minor warp in the spike, but this guy was severely warped out of the package. So, but otherwise, great paint job. Definitely, mine had a paint chip on his goatee, which I didn't necessarily like, but that can be any number of things that cause that, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. Plus, I think that's just, your mileage may vary. Sorry, I should have drank water before this. Alright, so that's my ranking. What are we thinking? Am I being too harsh on some of these guys? Am I being too generous with some of them? I might have been a bit too harsh on Sludge. Definitely don't pay any more than $60 for him. If you can find him for $50 or $55, or anywhere from $50 to $60, which $55 I think is the retail price for him right now, I wouldn't pay. I wouldn't pay more than $65. $65 I think is the maximum for this guy, just because you will be needing to buy that upgrade kit in order to fix his waist and those the kibble wings. But other than that, he's still a really good figure, so I'll bump him up a little bit. Let's see. Bump her down just a little bit, just because, she's better than Blur. She holds together at least. I'm thinking that's gonna be it. All right, so this is my tier list of the Studio Series 86 figures. So, let me know what you think. Comment down below. Maybe leave a like if you like the list. If you didn't like the list, tell me in the comments down below. And I will see you guys some other time. Guys, I need your help. Okay, so the algorithm is the #1 enemy of all YouTube channels. Any YouTube channel that's trying to start up or isn't pre-established is going to fail because of the algorithm. So what I need you to do, I need you to do 2 things. 1, I need you to hit like. 2, I need you to subscribe. If you don't do either of those things, this channel is not going to be able to stay afloat for very long. So please, like, subscribe, and if you really like me, you might leave a comment while you're at it. Thank you very much.